You're tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. This podcast will contain strong language and spoilers for decades-old media properties. Join us. Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast where we examine pop culture franchises of the VHS era and usually improv news stories. But today we're going to rant about dumb stuff that chaps our asses because we care way too much about our favorite movies, TV, and games. I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we were Raised by Rentals. Mike, 2023 Season 2 is almost over.
Yes, indeed. It's crazy.
I know it really is. People probably say that all the time, like, oh, I can't believe the year's almost over. Oh, I can't believe we did so much this year. But I am still truly in awe that not only did we start this podcast, but that we've kept it going for, this is episode 63, and we are wrapping up season 2. And I'm pretty proud of what we've created so far. And it's so cool to think about. We have so many ideas yet to go. So much stuff we haven't even gotten to yet that it's like, I can't believe we've done so much. And I feel like we're just getting started.
Oh, hell yeah. Same. Like, this is one of those podcasts, like when we first started it, I was like, man, I really hope we can at least get a solid year out of this. Cause I know we both have extremely busy schedules, but the fact that we've been able to keep it going and keep it as exciting as it has been and as fun for both of us, I love it. I'm hoping we can continue on for many seasons to come.
Yeah, I completely agree. And after the last episode that came out, our Yule Parish Christmas special with our horror host, Santa Claus, which was so much fun.
Oh, God, I had a blast with that one.
Oh, that was ridiculous. Oh, we definitely got to bring back Jurgen, the Yuletide Avenger.
Yes.
I want to get Clancy Brown to do the voice because we keep slipping into like the Mr. Krabs voice. You know?
He would be perfect. I mean, come on. He's the Kurgan from Highlander? Come on.
And then fucking Shawshank Redemption, Hadley the guard. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need no wife-killing bunker to tell me you were the bear shit in the buckwheat.
I love the fact that you just had that ready. Like, you just off the top of your head were able to quote that.
I just keep that in my pocket for when I need it.
That's fantastic.
Oh man. But after we did that episode, it always just makes me so jazzed when we have fun doing original stories. And that was actually our 6th episode that we did in season 2, and really altogether, where we did an original story that wasn't initially based on anything else, or if it was, like, most of it was out of our heads, you know? Mm-hmm. And it really gives me confidence that as we go forward with the show and we make some small changes and adjustments as we go, into season 3 and beyond, that I really want to lean more on original storytelling and not focus so much on always mashing up existing properties.
Oh, totally agree. I think we have the most fun when we're playing in our own sandbox.
I completely agree. And that's not to say that I don't want to still, go and play in other people's sandboxes, because I have some awesome ideas for episodes coming up for next year. I know you do too. We've talked about, a little bit of our schedule, and already we're going to come out of the gate with some episodes that are based on some properties from the VHS era that we've been wanting to get to for a while, or have recently come up, and it's like, oh yeah, put them at the top of the list,
Yep. And gotta get it done.
And that's so much fun to go and play with those toys with Jason Voorhees and Freddy and like teen comedies from the 80s. And I want to do more TV also at some point. We really haven't done much of that. And but again, as we think about this, I realize that the episodes that I think we have the most fun on, and the episodes that we get the best feedback from, tend to be the original stories. So just based on that, kind of making the announcement now that as we go forward, we're going to start working original stories into the schedule I think on probably a regular basis, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Not just waiting for like holiday specials, but having them cycle in there, maybe once a month or once every other month or whatever. Like, I think keeping them in the rotation is going to be a lot of fun. It'll give you and I a chance to use a lot of these ideas that we've had stockpiled in our brains for years,
Right.
Scripts and screenplays and things we never got a chance to write.
Not only that, but like I mean, look at what we did with Hot Garbage and the Vengabus of horror, where it's like, we picked a the stupidest concept. I was talking about a fucking song that I couldn't get out of my head while I was stoned, and then thought the lyrics were wrong, and I got on this whole tangent where I was like, are they killing people? Why are they running from the Vengabus? And then you took a fucking dumpster fire meme and we told two really fun stories about that. I would love to do those types of challenges again, where it's just like, all right, pick something random, like pick an 80s cartoon property. How did it go wrong? Like, what would happen if it was like, a crime noir or something? Like, just pick a random thing and then tell an original story based on it. Like that, or just to be like, hey, I had this story in my back pocket from when we were writing comic books all the time. Let's flesh this out. I would love to do that absolutely regularly, at least like once a month if we could, or once every other month, because we have so many stories. But you're right, there are so many things of nostalgia of our childhood that we've already discussed. We're like, oh fuck, we got a good idea for that one, we got to tell it. We've talked about one Mr. Christian Slater needs to make a couple appearances on our show. And I could not agree more. So we do have stuff in the works, so we're going to continue with our normal Raised by Rentals plan. But hopefully you guys are digging the original stuff as much as we dig making it. Because we want to do more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have so many story ideas that are like these little snippets that I wrote down in a notebook, and I'm like, oh, this is a genius idea, but then like I never went to go and do anything with it. So I think this will give us an opportunity to do that. And I'm gonna put a pin in this just for a second, because at the end of the episode, or after we have a chance to talk a little bit more, I want to go through some facts and figures, very similar to what we did at the end of our Ash Saves Christmas episode way back in last December, where we went through some statistics about the show, our most downloaded episodes and the genres that we touched on and the properties that we explored. Because I always think it's fun to kind of go back and look and see what we did, do our year in review. And not only is it fun to kind of look back and maybe provide some commentary, but then it gives us a good idea of like where to go next. Like, what have we done, or what did we not do enough of? What have we done to death? What horses have we kicked?
Exactly.
So, but it's funny that we're talking about this, because this is actually a rental rant episode for those of you who see it in your podcast feed now, listening to it, because while we're sitting here talking about our plans for riding the coattail of existing IP properties, which we've done all the way back to our first episode. The whole origin of the show was, let's talk about these VHS era properties that we love and like come up with our own shit. It's funny how long it took me to realize when you pointed it out that we just do a fanfic podcast. And I was a little bit heartbroken, like, oh shit.
We totally do. Oh crap.
God damn. And the reason is because while it's fun for us to do it, it like annoys me when there's so many people in social media and in, I'll say, sort of like peripheral entertainment, and that they just ride the coattails of other people's intellectual properties, or they go for like the easy way out when it comes to content because they don't have original thoughts. Right.
100% agree.
One of the things that I can't stand, that I see all the time, and it's been going on for years, this is nothing new, we're old curmudgeons bitching about shit. But man, I can't stand reaction videos on YouTube and TikTok. I just, these guys, these people who just listen to a song and then pause it every 5 seconds to like freak out and have this big over the top reaction to what they're listening to or what they're watching. And for some reason it's popular. I don't understand.
I really don't get it. Like there's, and I'm going to forget his freaking name now. There's one guy on TikTok that does something like this with music in particular. But he grew up, I think it was in Kenya that he grew up in. And it was like, he said he was kind of cut off from a lot of like 80s and 90s music growing up. Like he didn't hear a lot of what was considered popular in the West at that time. So like he gets suggestions from his followers like, oh, you should try System of a Down, or oh, you should try, Nirvana, or oh, you should try Metallica. And some of the stuff he's heard, but like he gives it a try, and he kind of like he vibes with it for a minute. He's like, okay, all right, I see it. And, he talks about it, and it's almost kind of adorable because like you're seeing someone witness it for the first time. But he's the only one. The only other time I've watched reaction videos is, and I hate to say this on the air, and remind people of Two Girls, One Cup, because I didn't want to see the actual video, but I watched the reactions people were having. That was funny, watching people just be like, what are they? Like, that was hilarious. But the other types of reaction videos that you're talking about, yeah, I fucking hate those. I watched a dude, he was breaking down an Eminem song on TikTok, and like literally every line that Eminem said, he was like, okay, so now it's cool that he said it this way because blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, and it was like every fucking line he would pause it. And I couldn't take it. I'm like, next, I got to get out of here. I can't take that type of content. So the reaction videos irritate the piss out of me.
Yeah, and I find that they come up in like my TikTok For You page way too often. Like somehow I get into those algorithms and it drives me crazy. And you're right. And let me just say this too, is like, I'm talking about hating the game. I'm not talking about hating the players, because
Absolutely.
I get it. I have no hate for anybody who can find their niche and get an audience and make money. I say, hey, brother, get paid, right? Get paid.
100%.
I got no hate for that. But that doesn't mean I have to enjoy it, because I don't.
It's the same thing. Like, okay, let's liken it to something that we've talked about on this show and on the Boogeyman's Closet. It's like the remake craze. Now, both you and I have said remakes can be fucking damn good. I am a remake apologist in the sense of like, I genuinely usually like them. There's been far more, I think, hits than misses when it came to remakes. The problem is all of Hollywood decided, oh, that's the way to go for about 10 years in Hollywood. Like, so for the first like 10 years of the 2000s, we had just remakes of everything. And it wasn't just movies, it was television shows. It was television shows becoming movies. It was, there were like remakes of like old video games becoming new video games. It was just like remake. And while they can be good, it starts to become too samey. Like, you're getting too much. So again, it's not the people making these good products that are at fault. It's that it's shitty that this trend is a thing that we can't seem to escape. Like, there's enough room for everyone to play.
Yeah, it's like, I hate to go for the sort of meta-textual clickbait of saying I hate clickbait, because that's like the easiest thing to bitch about. We have a whole podcast episode bitching about shit that I hate, and then to do it ourselves, But
right.
So instead of that, to me, it's what I think of in my head as the easy A content. It's this idea of, you could be making something creative and new and original, but instead you're going to react to someone else's original content, or you're going to criticize someone else's original content, or you're going to remake it, or you're going to remix it, or you're going to rehash it, or you're going to, do what we do, which is like, oh, I could have done that way better.
Yep.
And that's really what this is all about, because I feel that there is absolutely a line between like legitimate, fanfic, people who just love a franchise and want to like contribute to it. And then there's people who are just riding the coattails of creative people for fast clicks, easy money. And all they do is just, again, they have these over the top crazy reactions, or they do this like clickbaity nonsense because they know that if they have some hot take or some like video with the title of like, oh, the real secret behind blah 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 blah, and it's this whole concept that kind of drives me crazy. Again, the curmudgeon in me that's like, make something of your own.
Exactly. It's the, and I'm not going to get political here, but it is the news effect, where you have the news and then you have the talk shows about the news on the news channels, where it's not news, it's fucking opinion based on the news. And all they do is just be like, are your kids safe? well, my opinion is no, but I have no facts to back it up. But here, let me talk to you about it for a half hour. It's the same kind of bullshit. I fucking hate that stuff.
And I think what it comes down to is that there is a difference between criticism and commentary.
Yes.
And I think what we're really talking about is the fact that commentary, if it's not coming from the people who are directly involved in making the news or the pop culture, property or whatever, if you're not a part of the team that is putting something out into the world and you're just commenting on it, I don't give a fuck. You're about your stupid opinion,
Right.
Again, I draw the line with criticism because I think that criticism in journalism is 100% legitimate. And yes, it is a fine line between one person who is giving me their opinion, but they are giving me facts and figures and reasons and comparisons and quotes, and they're doing research and, writing an intelligent thought piece about why this movie is better than you think it is. And I want to read that, or I want to hear you tell me that on TikTok in a, 1-minute video. But it's these people who are on like ESPN talk shows and all they do is just talk about the game from yesterday all day, 12, 20 hours in a row of just talking about a game that happened that someone else played that we already saw, that other people already talked about. We already saw the breakdown. No one cares anymore. Like, let it go.
It's like, it's over. Move on, please. Oh, God. Well, it's like, and then unfortunately, because of this type of, I guess I don't want to say society, but this just trend of that type of stuff where people gravitate towards stuff that they know. Where it's like you try to create original content, but people aren't going to grab onto that because they don't know anything about it, so it doesn't interest them. You need that hook to get them in. And it's like, I remember when Tara and I first started doing conventions together, Tara creates amazing artwork and she creates amazing original characters. And, a lot of the stuff that I bring to conventions is fan art. And I do it for a reason, because it sells. Mm-hmm. And it sucks because I still have my booklet of all my original characters and all that. And I have comics, with original characters that I've drawn, that stuff like that. Those don't sell. The stuff that sells is this wacky picture of Jason Voorhees, or this wacky picture. Actually, one of my hottest sellers of this past year is the fucking Phantom of the Paradise piece I did with Pikmin's for the Phantom figure. God, why can't I think of his name? It's gonna bug me now. I can't think of the actual character's name. Winslow Leach. There it is. The picture I did of him for the pack-in poster, I sold that at every convention I've done. I had it online, and it sells like hotcakes. Like, people fucking love that piece, but it's fan art. And it's like, as much as it makes me happy that people want it, and it makes me happy that they want to hang it up in their house, that's wonderful. It's always an honor to have people want to buy my art. But it always does. It hurts a little bit knowing that I can't sell my original creations with the same gusto. And I get it. I understand, because again, I'm a collector. I am a fanboy. So I'm going to be buying those Ninja Turtles. I'm going to be buying those G.I. Joes. I might not buy this original new property that I know nothing about. It's I think we all fall victim to it due to pop culture, but it sucks that there's not more room for original stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm sure that you've paid witness to the sort of ugly side of that same concept where, you are drawing eyeballs to your artwork because you're showing them, here's this pop culture character that you love in my funny cartoon style, come look at my silly Leatherface, or, whatever character that you like. And at the same time, there are people out there who have to resort to like, oh, look, I'm an attractive woman, come and look at my artwork because, I'm a girl, tee. And, and not that's not the only example, but like, it's like you have to rely on something else besides your artwork just to get people to give you like the time of day.
Oh, 100%. This is something like I remember me and Tara talk about this all the time, because it's frustrating. Because again, she'll post these amazing original pieces of art on Instagram and get a handful of likes. Then she'll post like a gym selfie and it'll blow the fuck up. And it irritates her because it's like, okay, I get it. Like, I have boobs, but I have this awesome artwork. I would like people to pay attention to my awesome artwork, but everyone's like boobs, and it sucks. But her and I were joking about it because we see it at conventions all the time. Like there are plenty of girls out there that are like, you know what, it's gonna sell. I'm gonna wear the low cut top and fuck it. And we've talked to creators that are doing that. They're like, yeah, oh, I'm totally doing it on purpose because it brings the grease balls over. They come and look at the art and they buy stuff. So it's like, hey, again, don't hate the player. But me and Tara laugh about that all the time. I told her, I was like, I got boobs. Nobody wants to see them. If I could, shit, I'd be using them. I was like,
Right.
I was like, here, let me wear a little crop top and see what that gets me, but shit. But it sucks though, because it is this thing of like, you create this thing, you're super proud of it, whether it be a story or music or, physical, like drawings or paintings like Tara and I do, or even a podcast, like you create these original stories and you want people to be excited. And sometimes it's so hard to get the notice because people just gravitate toward what they like. And like I said, we're all guilty of it. I know I have my comfort food movies. We've talked about that how many times on this podcast and on the Boogeyman's Closet, where it's like, yeah, sure, I could watch this brand new thing, but I really want to watch The Toxic Avenger again, and it's like, or like right now at Christmas time, I'm like, I'm on vacation. I could totally be watching all this shit that I need to catch up on, but I really want to watch Christmas Vacation for the fourth time this year, or, and it's like, it's a comfort food thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I watch the same shit over and over again. Like, part of the reason why we put the limitation on Raceway Rentals to look at properties from the VHS era is because, like, I don't watch a lot of movies anymore, and I watch even less TV. So just trying to talk about pop culture in general, I was like, I don't know, man, because if you want to do something that came out in like 2015, like the chances that I actually saw it are pretty low. Unfortunately. But yeah, right. I mean, we started the podcast talking about, Friday the 13th, and that was really what initially was the draw to get people to come and give it a chance. If it was just a couple of guys telling stories to each other, like improving made up bullshit, and no one knew who we were, like no one would care. No one would have ever listened,
Not at all.
But instead we had an audience for that first episode. We had feedback from that first episode. We kept going because of that. I mean, we've never had a giant audience, but there are people out there who listen and let us know. And, it keeps me going. But like I said, I think we're at the point now where it's like, okay, we kind of did one for like the machine and now we can do one for us,
Exactly.
I think we've gone to that.
Yeah, you have to oscillate between the two. You have to go back and forth, be like, all right, here's the. It's like Spielberg. He said he did the one movie that he knew would make the money, and then he would try to do the movie that meant something to him. And like I know a lot of musicians do that same thing too, where they're like, we're gonna on this album we're gonna put this cover because we know it's gonna be a radio hit. Like that's what we're gonna do, but it's gonna get to popularity. Then we're gonna get these other songs out there, and it's like it's a solid marketing plan.
Yeah, you do one for the money, and then you do like the pet project. I mean, that's just the way that it works, So yeah, I mean, I don't want to, beat this dead horse anymore either. I just wanted to kind of have a chance to kind of bitch, and we haven't done a rental rant in a while, so it was like, you know what, let's just take some time, get it off our chest a little bit.
Right.
And while we're at it, let's throw out the fact that you mentioned Tara, right? Yeah, Tara Marie Mitravich at TM Illustrations and Coffin Dreams LLC. Go to radpantheon.com. There's links up there, and find her on Instagram as well. And go put some likes on those original drawings, people, and go buy some cool clothes from her.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah, she's got some great merchandise with some original artwork on it. Some really, really cool stuff. Sweaters and.
Yeah, her Christmas stuff, her vintage Christmas stuff, it's all original and it's fucking gorgeous. Like if you're like me and you like those old school, like 5 and dime cardboard cutout Christmas and Halloween decorations. For me, that's a big part of my childhood, especially back in the 80s. But, these date back to like the fucking 50s. She has original designs in that style on clothing. And it's beautiful. Chef's kiss. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So definitely check out coffindreams.com. That's our plug for this episode. But definitely Tara deserves it. But at the same time, lots of other cool pop culture stuff available on the Instagram if you want to go check out Tara Drawn's, some other characters that you probably like. So anyway, Well, let's turn this sort of meta-fictional, metatextual look at pop culture back on ourselves and talk about our own podcast and navel gaze for a little while.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, so like I said, we started this way back in 2021 with an episode about Friday the 13th and Jason Voorhees in the snow at Christmas time. We never really intended to talk so much about Christmas and Halloween and to focus so much on the holidays, but they really lend well to storytelling, and I like Christmas movies. I like Christmas music and specials.
Me too.
So I always thought it was kind of fun that we started with a Christmas episode. We end our seasons with Christmas episodes. We have done a total of technically 4 Christmas specials all together, all the way from the beginning, starting with that first one, Christmas the 13th. But then in season 2, we technically did 3. We started our season this time with Ash Saves Christmas last December. And we typically were starting our seasons with Christmas, but it's easier to just do the end of the year. So for season 2, I decided we're going to start and end with Christmas, and then we'll sync up, just January to December going forward. So we did Ash Saves Christmas, and then we did our Black Friday episode, which wasn't initially intended to be so focused on Christmas, but we had a lot of Christmas in there.
Yeah, I think that was unavoidable because the whole reason for Black Friday is people are going crazy Christmas shopping. So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And then we already mentioned the Yule Parish episode with Jurgen, the Yuletide Avenger. That was a really fun one. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoy looking back as a nerd who deals with spreadsheets and facts and figures all the time in my day job. I like looking back and seeing like, well, what did we do, in season 2, and how was it different? So I'm just going to kind of go through a couple of things, and if people are bored, hey, that's fine. Like we already talked about, the stuff that you kind of came here to listen to. So if you want to peace out, that's fine with me. Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that we didn't really do any TV, but the fact is we did 0 TV in season 2. We had no episodes that were takeoffs of existing television properties.
That surprises me only because we've talked about so many. I think that's what I'm getting confused with, because I'm like, but I remember talking to you about certain TV shows, but I think that was off the air. Like, hey, should we do something with this property? And not an actual, we're going to do something with this property.
Yeah, and we had several that were on the schedule that got bumped, and then we just never did them, for one reason or another, because there was some that were like a lot of homework. We had to watch a bunch of episodes. We even had one that we even mentioned. You had mentioned that we were going to do one about what is it called? Cops. What was the name of that cartoon? They changed it. It was like Cyber Cops or something. I forget.
Oh, yeah. It was Cops and Crooks. It was.
That's it. Yeah, but it's like these futuristic like cyborg police officers, and it was a cartoon in the 80s, right?
Yeah, Central Organization of Police Specialists.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you had even mentioned that on one of your other podcasts that like, oh, we're going to do that one soon. Then we never got back to it. It just kept getting bumped, and there were actually several others. We did have one episode where we talked about creating a TV show, which was part of our Aliens and Predator franchise.
Yep.
But we never actually started with one. So I thought that was interesting. We started with movies most of the time. So we ended up doing a total of 28 episodes in season 2. We did 35 in season 1, but the reason that there were so many more is because we did more of our special non-improv episodes. We did 9 rental rants and 1 super gushers in the first season, but we really kind of dialed those back for various reasons this year. We only did 2 rental rants. Number 3 would be this one we're doing right now. And then, or wait, is this the second one? I think I lost. No, this is the second one. We've only did 1 rental rant all season before this one, which is when we talked about toxic fandom way back in April or something. But we did 3 super gushers, one of which we had, Sam on with us. But yeah, so we did 23 improvs, which is pretty close to the 25 we did in the first season. So we were pretty close with that. We just didn't do as many of the specials. But out of those 23 improvs, 14 of them were based initially on movie properties. So that's like 60%, which again makes sense. We also turned stories into movies. Let me see here. How many times did we do that? We did it. I didn't even count this up right. So we turned something into a movie pretty much every time except for I think 2, we had like one TV and like one comic book, and everyone else was just turning it into a movie. So that's something else we could think about for season 2. Maybe we start with stuff that isn't movies, and maybe we end with improv improves that aren't movies.
Mhm.
So something to think about, something to keep in mind. We did 6 original episodes, like I mentioned. We had our Who's Improv Is It Anyway, which was also kind of based on some other properties like Looney Tunes and Monopoly, but it really came out of us just mashing up shit out of our heads.
Right.
And then
all from a random spinner wheel.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned the Vengabus of Death and Hot Garbage, which was our first double feature special, and that was the real breakout one. That was the one that really proved that original content was the way to go.
Yeah.
Not only was it so much fun for us, we got the most positive feedback on both of those episodes. And just looking at the popularity of episodes based on downloads, so in season 2, the Vengabus of Death was our top downloaded episode of the whole season.
Woohoo!
The least popular one by downloads was our Centipede, the motion picture, which that's interesting.
I liked that one.
Me too. I was like, really? Like honestly, it's usually the rental rants and super gushers that people don't care about as much.
Yeah.
In season 1, it was the Have Fun Storming the Castle, the rental rant about like gatekeeping. That was our least popular episode. But yeah, I was like, oh, really, Centipede? Oh man, that's a bummer. I thought that one was better.
Yeah, I was gonna say I remember really liking some of the death scenes in that one. Like I was like, oh, we came up with some gnarly stuff.
I thought so too. So yeah, we started with a lot of non-horror properties and then turned them into horror a lot.
Yeah.
Now, granted,
that might be a little bit my fault there.
Well, I mean, you're the horror guy. Plus, let's be honest, like horror is easy from a storytelling perspective for guys like you and I. I think easy in general, but like for you and I, it's even easier because you're a big horror fan. And I just find, while I'm not as much of a horror aficionado in terms of what I enjoy to watch and read, I find that I really enjoy telling those stories.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing, because horror stories appeal to like that base human fear of death, like of what would happen if I was put in this crazy situation. Not to say that like, love stories don't appeal to people for like a, base human instinct reason and things like that. But it's just, it's a fun sandbox to play in, and it's something that everyone can relate to, even if they're not a horror fan. We've all been scared at some point, so it is an easy storytelling device, and that's one of the reasons I love it.
Yeah, me too. So yeah, we actually started with a horror property 6 times, and the following that, the action and comedy were split neck and neck 4 times each, with again the genre of like the thing that we started with. And then we ended with horror 15 out of 23. So again, more than 60%. So we pretty much made like a bunch of horror movies out of stuff that wasn't all necessarily horror to begin with.
Makes sense.
And it's funny when you think about it, because 15 maybe doesn't seem like a whole lot, but that means that we did 3 action movies, 3 comedies, and what I classified as 2 thrillers, or I guess they're kind of action movies too. But yeah, but like those numbers are so much smaller when you think about, we did 3 comedies and 15 horror movies.
I mean, that does sound about right.
Yeah, I think so. And so I don't know that I even really want to change it that much either, because I feel like, again, based on feedback in the audience that we have, that horror is probably a pretty safe bet most of the time. I don't know that it's just like, I don't know that it's the easy A, really. I think it's what people want. So let's give it to them. It's what you and I want. It's what people want to hear. But at the same time, it's like, okay, let's take a break from horror for a little while.
Well, I will say my second favorite thing to do, I mean, obviously I've said many times on this show, many times on my other shows, horror comedy is my absolute favorite genre. That is my comfort food movies. I love horror movies that are a little tongue-in-cheek, a little silly, or even ones that were meant to be scary, but because they're so low budget, they're very silly. That's my favorite go-to. So of course I'm going to like that, but I also really love the action comedy. And one of
Mm-hmm.
my favorite episodes we did was the sequel to Cobra. I think I had more fun with that than like most of our episodes. It just, there was something about it, maybe because Cobra is such a ridiculous movie and we knew it, but once you added Sinbad in the mix, I'm like, yeah, no, this is going to be fucking great. Like, and it
Yes.
just stayed hilarious for the whole fucking run.
I totally agree. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that was actually going to be my next question. I thought we could kind of wrap up with just talking about our own insights, our own commentary, our own commentary on, on
To
what
get
we
even
thought of.
more meta.
Exactly. Our own commentary on like what we thought about the season. So I, setting the originals aside, because I think the originals kind of are above and beyond like the best ones, or at least, the most fun. But yeah, I completely agree. I think that Cobra 2, it might take the cake again, other than the originals. I think I hate to like take my own idea and say it was my favorite, but I think that I had the most fun with Hot Garbage.
Oh yeah.
But I think Vengabusa's death, as again out of the originals, was my favorite one to listen to after the fact.
Both that and Hot Garbage, I had way too much fun with. Like, I think those were definitely my favorites of the season.
Yeah, and I think that Pauly Shore's Thanksgiving Vacation was the weirdest thing we did.
But the funny thing I was going to say, based on the original properties, like properties or I shouldn't say original properties, existing properties, based on existing properties, the Pauly Shore's Thanksgiving Vacation and Cobra 2 Assignment Miami Beach, they might be tied for my favorite. With close behind them is Mr. Monopoly's Neighborhood and Return of the Living Dead Teenage Wasteland. I had fun with those four from existing properties, because I also loved Whose Improv Was It Anyway. That was such a wild ride. But Mr. Monopoly's Neighborhood turned out to be one that I was shocked by how fun it became.
Yeah, I would
Like,
agree with that. I did not expect it to be that good.
no, and it's also because we hit a genre of film that was big when we were kids, but you don't really see it anymore. And that's that, like, that feel good activism movie where it's like you have a group of people who are being, systemically preyed upon or kept down, but by, like, whether it be like the evil mayor or the rich guy in town like that, or the bad corporation. There's always something, but because that shit's real, like that shit actually happens. But we were able to take that and do one of those feel good movies that you saw again and again and again in the 90s. It was like, we got to save the youth center, those types of movies. And it was a lot of fun. Like, and we did that on a Monopoly. Like,
Yeah.
like, it always blows my mind.
Yeah, again, I agree. I agree entirely. I thought as soon as we hit on that idea of like, yeah, the, social commentary comedy, it was a genre I had completely forgotten about because, like you said, you just don't really seem to see it anymore. And that became the linchpin. That was the hook that made that work. And in much the same way when we were doing the Yule Parish episode last time, we were having a lot of fun with the characters and with Jurgen, but at the same time, the story was kind of meandering until the evil twin twist.
Yes.
And it gave us the hook that said, yes, now we know this character's motivation and their backstory.
You need that pin, that linchpin. It has to happen.
Yeah, I agree. So now I'll ask you, what do you think was the worst episode we did? Let's do the hot take.
Okay. Okay. As far as improv, because I feel like we kind of floundered a bit on the Bustin' Makes Me Feel Good, but that was more of a super gusher. So just because we went into it with this hot take of like, you said Ghostbusters 2 was better. I said Ghostbusters 1 was better. And then we watched them and we both kind of came out with the same agreement. We're like, well, we can't really do what we planned. So let's just talk about Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
I think our worst improv one might have been Spider-Man 95.
Okay. Yeah. I won't argue with that. I think that one, it came out okay, but it was tough. We were kind of all over the place. And that one to me was more of like a fan cast, and we should have just left it at that and maybe not tried to come up with the story,
Right.
I will agree. I think Bustin' Makes Me Feel Good I'll say it was probably the most inconsequential episode. It was the one that we probably didn't even need to put out. But I
Yeah.
don't think it was bad. It was a fun conversation. Honestly, kind of like the
Oh
one we're
yeah.
having right now. Like the fun conversation we're having right now is like, yeah, this isn't like groundbreaking stuff, everybody. I hope you're still listening to us,
Right.
just rant and rave and talk about ourselves. But yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. We wanted to do something, so we did. Um,
Yeah.
I think the League of Extraordinary Arnie's was the least successful episode.
I forgot about that one. Yeah, now I'm
Yeah.
looking at the list right now. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have to agree with you. I put Spider-Man below that one because it it was one of those things where when we looked at the characters, what was it, Kimball from Kindergarten Cop?
Yeah, Kimball
I think
from
it,
Kindergarten Cop and
and oh, God, I forget his name.
Trasker, what was his name from True Lies? Harry
Something like,
something.
yeah, Harry Tasker, I think. When we looked at those two characters, we're like, oh yeah, this will totally work together. And we didn't really think about a story. We just thought about like how easy it would be to connect with like government spy and undercover cop. Like, sure, those go together like peanut butter and jelly. We can do
Yeah,
that.
the no-brainer.
Then we started working on the story, and it was like, oh God, where are we going with this? Like, why? It wasn't until we thought of Danny DeVito that it was like, okay, we have something to work
Yeah.
with. But it was still pretty rough.
It was. Danny DeVito was the hook, and the Penguin from Batman Returns kind of saved it, kind of righted the ship a little bit. Yeah, but barely. We took on a lot of water to stretch the metaphor, Yeah, I think that was probably the closest we ever came to just completely crashing and burning and failing miserably. And I remember we talked about that after the fact, and the lesson that we learned there was actually part of the reason why some of our TV show episodes ended up getting bumped, was because we were like, oh, well, it's such an obvious idea. Put these two characters together and mash them up and it'll be fun, until we did that. And then we realized the problem is that, yeah, these two characters would work really well together, but the fact that they exist in the same story doesn't give us any idea of what the story is. Like, what's the plot? What do they do? It's
Exactly.
when you take something ridiculous like having, Pauly Shore be in a Thanksgiving movie, that immediately tells me, oh, we're going to have all these antics. We're going to do this and this and this. And it's like, there were so many we didn't even put into the episode that I kept thinking about, know? But when you take two characters that are really similar, and again, yes, in real life they would have worked well together, but the story's boring. It's the action movie the story's boring. It's like a Law and Order episode. Like, so what,
Right. Yeah. It didn't go anywhere, and unfortunately it was one of those episodes where we had a limited amount of time to work with it. We knew that we were like coming up against a clock. Like, I had to go to work, and it was just like, fuck, we should have let that one cook a little longer. While this is all improv, we try not to think about the stories ahead of time too much, because we don't want to lean on a prefabricated story. We want to be able to like come up with the concept and then just be like, all right, don't look at it again until it's time to record. But I feel like sometimes we might have to look at it for a few more minutes and just be like, is this something we truly want to do?
Yeah, I agree. And again, that's another reason why we bumped things off the schedule, because we had built the schedule of like, let's go through our list that we made together of all the ideas we had, and just kind of stack them by priority of like, which ones are the most fun we want to get to first, and then everything else kind of after that. And we'll line up the holidays based on the calendar, blah, 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 blah. But then, yeah, as we go along, it's like sometimes there's episodes on the schedule that I just don't want to do. Like, it sounded fun when we were just bullshitting months ago, but then when it comes time to actually go and watch some movies for homework and think about it, I realized that like, I don't have anything to say about these characters.
Right.
Yeah, I think when push comes to shove, we can make a story about anything. And we've proven that with our improv games, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's something I want to put out for people to listen to,
Right. And it's like, well, like, and to take another example of like where we didn't know what we were going to do and it turned out amazing, is Ernest Goes to Slasher Camp, where our sequel to Slasher Camp, we knew kind of ahead of time, like, okay, Freddie and Jason now have this summer camp. We know that. And then, like when the idea got tossed around of like, hey, Ernest should go to the camp, it was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, we're going to have Ernest and Freddie and Jason, and shit's going to get wild. So we had no idea what to do other than that going in. And then we were able to work in Ash. We were able to work in Chucky and Ghostface. And like, we just had this wacky fucking ride with like no prep work ahead of time. So it's one of those things where we can mash properties together and have a lot of fun with it. Like, who would have thought Freddy and Jason plus Ernest, and
Yeah.
that's going to be good, and it was fun as hell. So
Yep.
you'd assume, like, hey, these two similar Arnies, that's going to work great together, and it was like so
Yeah, I agree, and I want to say too, I think we need to be more careful with whodunit stories also, because we did the submitted for the approval of the Breakfast Club, and we did Black Friday,
yeah.
and we did Yule Parish, and they were all whodunits, and you and I had to approach all three of them in different ways, and all three of those episodes, while I like all three of them, they all
Mm-hmm.
have these sections in the middle where it's like we're spinning our wheels for 10 minutes because we don't want to reveal what our idea is for who the killer is supposed to be, because we don't plan it out ahead of time, and it's like I have an
Yep.
idea and you have an idea, and then we end up like it's like we're fighting each other to tell the story, because I want my character to be positioned to be the killer or the hero, and you want your
Mm-hmm.
character to be positioned, and it's like we're smashing them together because we're trying not to give it away. So
Right.
that's something that we need to rethink in the future, that if we do another whodunit, we need to like logistically think about, like, let's plan ahead. Like, yes, we don't have to plan the story, but like let's decide, maybe even like we did with Black Friday, where it's like, okay, start the story and then go off to the side and agree what we're gonna do, and then come back.
Right.
A
See,
little bit of kayfabe.
I think that's probably the best way to do it, because we were still able to surprise each other throughout the run of Black Friday. And then, yeah, when we hit that point, like we were both on the same page of like, we got to figure out who the killer is. We got to talk about that. So like when we paused the episode to go and talk about that for a moment, it was like, yeah, we wound up on very similar pages with the killer, but it was like, if we had just kept spinning our wheels, the episode would have fell apart. So
Hmm.
we absolutely have to make sure that we do that. Like, we go into it with the knowledge of, at some point in this episode, we are going to pause, talk for 5 minutes, come to an agreement, and continue the story.
Yeah, and that's kind of what happened with the Breakfast Club episode too. Like, we literally
Mhm.
ran out of time and had to, kind of revisit it, because it was like, shit, like, I don't know, man, we're wasting time, like, fucking around. you
Right.
know.
We need to figure this out now. Yeah,
So
that can, and that's one of the hard parts about the nature of this show. When you're doing a show where it is improv, like true improv, and you're trying to still stick to a timetable, it can be tough. It's definitely a challenge more often than not.
I agree. Sometimes the time constraint is a huge part of what influences the episode, and we don't really talk about that much. I mean, there have been some times when it's been like, oh shit, I gotta go to work, and that ends up in the final edit, that comment that you make because you
Mhm.
work nights after we record a lot. But yeah, there's actually been a lot of times when the fact that the clock is ticking makes us, we're not giving it away to the audience, but we're either texting each other or making comments on the side of like, okay, man, we got to wrap this up,
Yeah.
and that kind of informs what happens. But yeah, I think most of the time when we get to that point where we're running too long, then something has gone wrong, right? We failed somewhere in the story, that we can't find that point in the story where it's like, oh, it's all downhill from here. Like, oh yeah, we nailed it. We nailed the climax, and now it's all gravy.
Yeah. Well, it's that hook. It's that hook that you talk about. Like when we again, I'm going to go back to Cobra 2, just because that's, I think that might be my favorite improve episode of the year. Um, go back to that one. We went into it with no knowledge of what we were going to do for the sequel, other than a genre switch. We had discussed, like, let's do a genre switch, and we were talking about
Hmm.
making it a comedy, since it was the early 90s, and we were taking all these, like, big action stars and doing cutesy comedy movies with them, so why not? It made sense. But the hook was, once we talked about him protecting the president's daughter, and you had Sinbad be the CIA agent, it was like, we had, like, that is it. We have our duo. It's now a buddy cop movie, and it's
Yeah.
fucking great. Like, and like and then literally everything after that, every idea was gravy. We were just
Hmm.
like spitballing funny ass jokes after joke after joke. And I
Yeah.
had so much fun. I've listened to that episode God, I've probably listened to it like 6 times this year. Like it's one of those episodes I'll throw on in the background when I'm drawing just because I always laugh. And it's silly laughing at your own jokes, I know, but God, I was cracking up at our fucking jokes.
Well, that's a testament to how successful it was, because we can enjoy it too. It's like years ago when I was in this band and I never wrote any of the music. I would write the lyrics and do the vocals, but I never wrote any of the music, and I can't write music. And I just really enjoyed the music that my bandmates were writing. And I just loved being a part of that creative process. And I would listen to my own CDs all the time for years. And I still do occasionally, because I just enjoy the music. And I used to always say that if I wasn't in the band, I would have been their biggest fan, because I just loved it. And I'm glad that I got a chance to be a part of that. And so I think it's cool when we go back and listen to our own episodes. And to me, it's not necessarily navel gazing. Sometimes as I'm learning and I'm researching, how to improve future episodes. But a lot of times it's like, you know what? Yeah, I want to go back and hang out with Marion Cobretti again. Like that was fun,
Right. I love that his name is Marion.
Yeah. And I'll say too that episode also had my favorite thumbnail art of the whole season.
Oh God, yes. With Sinbad peeking around the palm tree.
Yeah. I mean, it was just really terrible Photoshop, because I had to find these pictures online, and then they both had like different color schemes, and the picture of Stallone was like really saturated red, and the picture of Sinbad was really low res that I had to find off of a movie poster, because there was other shit on like the DVD cover that I couldn't like easily cut out. And I'm not good with like Photoshop, so I was like, the fact that it was so terribly Photoshopped, I thought was perfect for like the era that the movie would have come out in.
Right.
It was just seeing Sinbad poking up behind a palm tree, dude. I was sitting here at like 1 a.m. finishing that, just giggling hysterically.
Dude, you sent me the image. You sent me the thumbnail when I was at work. And so I get the text, I open it up, and I see that thumbnail staring back at me, and I fucking snorted. Like, I could not stop laughing. Because, like, it's so ridiculous to see this pissed off, badass Stallone with smiling Sinbad peeking out behind. I fucking lost it. It's so good. But yeah, I definitely would say that's one of the best thumbnails we've had this year.
Well, I think it, man. I really appreciate it. I know it's fresh, but I also really, really love the drawing you did of Jurgen the Yuletide Avenger.
Oh,
when you sent that over, I was just like, oh, fuck yeah, dude, the color scheme and the red and the blood and how like thick he was. I was like, oh, this is so perfect.
I was like, that's what I was picturing when we were talking about Jurgen. I'm like, he's like this giant beefcake. Like, oh man, I had so much fun drawing that. But and now I feel like I want to do more with Jurgen going forward. Like I feel like next year I might make little Jurgen Christmas ornaments.
That'd be awesome. But anyway,
have our own Christmas monster.
Yeah. Oh, he's definitely coming back next year. We got to find some way to work him in. And,
fuck yeah.
And like maybe we'll match him up with somebody else's property.
Right.
That'd be awesome.
That would be fun.
But anyway, man, I appreciate you going down this little memory lane with me, going through and looking back at some of these. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's navel gazing. It's meta. It's like inward looking. And, we're doing the exact same thing that we were bitching about other people doing, and just reacting to stuff. But, whatever. That's kind of the whole point of the episode, is talking about how sometimes the shit can piss me off. But there's ways to do it, I think, that are good. There's ways to add something to other people's properties, add something to the fan community, while at the same time using it as a springboard to do something on our own. So yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Season 2's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the next year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm excited to see what we can pull off in the future. And I do have a few properties I still really hope we can get to, but we have that massive list of things. And I can't wait to tell more original stories, and I definitely can't wait to have more improv style games, like Whose Improv Is It Anyway, and our You'll Perish episode. The tense nervousness of those episodes, it's so terrifying, but it's so exhilarating. Like, it's just like, oh God, what's gonna happen next? Like,
yes,
it's so much fun.
Know. Yeah, I agree. I definitely want to do more of those, and I like mixing it up. I think the next time, we got to, we'll change the rules. The first time we picked random entries out of various categories, and then we had Santa Claus come on and surprise us with, genre twists and tropes and things. And so, yeah, next time we'll do something else. Maybe we'll have another guest on who can come on and be our host and give us some ideas, or feed us twists and turns or whatever. So yeah,
Absolutely.
if you're listening to this and you're interested in that, let us know, because it should be a lot of fun. But yeah, anyway, thanks again for tuning into the Raised by Rentals program. Don't forget to check us out on all the socials at Raised by Rentals and at Rad Pantheon, and visit us at raisedbyrentals.com, and of course radpantheon.com for all of our friends, all of our Rad Pantheon teammates who make rad stuff. And we are here to spread the word about cool stuff like Coffin Dreams and The Boogeyman's Closet, and So It's Come to This, a Simpsons Family podcast, and Count Creepyhead's Saturday Morning Monster Mash, and Neon Fantastic, and what else? Comics Boost, Heretic Party.
Yep.
Yeah, let's not forget them. Pikmin's Vinyls, Jerry's Closet, The Western New York Horror Crew, Jobel Blazo, Mealy Monsterland, M.A. LeMay's artwork, Mike McCoy special effects and makeup, Justin von Strasberg's solo music. What else is there? Ground Sweat, Pissing Match. So yeah, I'm sure that I forgot something. It's a huge list of cool stuff. If I forgot you, I'm sorry. Horrified Chicken. I'm hoping you guys make a comeback sometime soon. But other than that, anything else, Mike?
Well, I'm just going to take the time now to say this here, because I don't think it will launch until January. But the duo behind Pikmin's, me and Josh Hibbard, have cooked up a little podcast that'll be coming soon to the Rad Pantheon. So yes, I will be doing a fourth fucking podcast. If you guys aren't sick of hearing my voice by now, you might be after that one. But yeah, we will have something coming. We recorded the first episode last night, and let's just say I laughed my ass off through the recording and then listening back to the recording. So I really hope everyone digs it. I'm going to try to get it out before Christmas if I can, but I don't think that's going to happen. So by the time you hear this, just keep your eyes peeled to the Rad Pantheon Network, and you will see it pop up.
Awesome. Yeah, I am super looking forward to that. You gave me a little preview, a little explanation before we started recording, and I was already cracking up just thinking about it. So I cannot wait. And yes, season 3 of Raised by Rentals coming up 2024. We're going to have special guests. We're going to have non-horror episodes. We're going to have more original content. We're going to have board games. It's going to be awesome. Everyone stick around. Thanks for listening to us rant and rave about ourselves for so long. And with that, I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we have to return some videotapes. Raised by Rentals is a member of the Rad Pantheon Network. Visit radpantheon.com to support rad stuff. The theme music is Forbidden Fruit by Velvet Bethany. You can purchase music and learn more at velvetbethany.com.
And 100% more Christian Slater.